right, welcome everyone to another session at the new Media Center here at INACSL 2022. So excited to be having an opportunity to come and connect with people here in person for the first time in 2 years, and also to record some of these digital sessions so that we can share more of the knowledge that's gained here with the global audience. My name is Lance. I'm the founder and CEO of HealthySimulation.com. And so I have next to me here Penny Watts, who is not only the chair of the standards committee with INACSL, but is also the assistant dean for simulation at UAB. Sure, yeah, that's enough job titles right there. Who is and her team is all here, so you can give us a little woo so we can hear you on the camera. Full support here. We got full support. And so so the standards, right? So I know we had a renaming of the standards to the healthcare simulation standards of best practice. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so that's kind of a trademarked thing by INACSL. It's an official keeper of the standards for the International Nursing Association for Clinical Simulation and Learning. And what it is a kind of a basic overview. I shouldn't say basic. It breaks down an overview of all the key elements that are really absolutely crucial for you and your program to be successful with simulation. This is the go-to guide that everyone who's getting started with simulation must absolutely read and disseminate in their institution. So I know there's been a lot of new developments with the standards, the name change, and then also a lot of new standards that have been added to it just recently, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd love to first learn a little bit more about your work and the team, and what is it doing with these standards, and what are they all about?
So the standards are basically, like you said, a foundation for simulation and how we implement and using best practice. And they've kind of developed through the years. And this, of course, is something that you can purchase. It's got all the standards in there as well. And I brought that in case I forgot something.
Sure.
But it's really a good guide for anyone at any level, any profession, any situation, to really have evidence in how they conduct their simulations. And this committee has spent the last several years, COVID prolonged just a little bit, in revising and adding 2 new standards to the cadre of standards.
Great. So tell me a little bit about those 2 new ones. What are the 2 new ones?
The 2 new ones are the pre-briefing standard, which is pre-briefing, preparation, and briefing, as well as the professional development standard.
Okay, the professional development. Now, I think we did webinars with these on the HealthySimulation.com Learn platform just in the past year to kind of cover a little bit more about these. They're free for download. There's CEs that are involved with that, so definitely check those out. And so those 2, professional development and pre-briefing, are new ones added to the other ones that we have available: simulation design, facilitation, the debriefing process, operations, outcomes and objectives, professional integrity, simulation enhanced learning, and evaluation of learning and performance. And so you can quickly see how there's a lot, right, to being successful with simulation. So tell us a little bit about, how do you create these standards? How do we collect the information that we need to have? And how do we truncate it down to be a simple kind of explanation of these complex ways of doing business, as it were, in terms of operations of simulation?
I have to say, our committee, we were fortunate. There were already standards that were developed in 2011 by pioneers in simulation that began with the research and evidence. And over the years, they've added and grown. And so we were given the opportunity to go through the literature. It was based upon a survey of the membership, but generally about the research that is out there that the community has conducted and implemented and disseminated. And we did a systematic review of the literature with a healthcare librarian that helped us pull all that together, and that's what we formulated these from.
Right.
And they are complex, but I think for anyone, there are ways you can start and find some. If you have a deficit in one area, you can start with that one. And we're actually doing some sessions tomorrow or Friday here at the conference to kind of break down some of these.
Right.
It is overwhelming to do all of them, but you pick one and start, and then you can work through the rest of them.
And they're free online, right?
You can
anyone
download.
Can just go ahead and gain instant access. And I think there's some amazing posters as well. Some great.
There are some infographics that kind of have a basic sort of overview of the standard that you can put on your wall, wherever you want to use them.
Awesome. Now, we at HealthySimulation.com have suggested to folks that this is a great resource to be able to hand over to administrators when they're just not quite understanding why we might need to do things the way that the community has suggested to us, right? So have you or your team heard of stories of folks that have reported to you that the standards really help them to show the light of why and get people bought into, expanding their thinking about simulation or doing things differently through the standards? Have you heard those stories from the
We
team?
have heard, and a lot of our team and lots of other teams, a lot of other people as well. I know in our community, I do some sim classes at our school for community and in the region. And we had a school attend one of our conferences. They had never heard of INACSL, never heard of the standards. And they were like, this is exactly what we've needed. They just didn't know it was around. And
Right.
they were able to take that to administration and really vie for, it's not just a mannequin in a room or in a bed. There's more to the methodology than just making it up as we go,
Right.
like we've done years ago.
Right. And I think that, case in point is like, for example, the professional development standard, right? Like demonstrating to administration and to leadership, oh, hey, by the way, this is not just as simple as turning on a mannequin and then boom, you're doing simulation, right? There's an entire process that needs to be really put into place so that you can assess the work that is being done for those investments so that you can demonstrate value and that you can continue to build and expand upon a program. Could you just talk to us briefly about these two new standards, professional development and pre-briefing?
So professional development, this was one that it was a very large subcommittee. We had interprofessional and international across our entire committee and subcommittees. And this one, it really took some time. Beth Hallmark was the lead. I know that she's here somewhere. And spend a lot of time in developing this. And one thing about this standard is we have people across the country and the world, and you have to consider what are our expectations of faculty and staff and educators that are doing this, and what's going to be reasonable for them. So it includes a self-assessment, figuring out where you are and how you're going to become that lifelong learner and where you're going to gain the information that you need. So
Right.
You need to look it up. It's on the web. So.
Okay, great. And now a little bit about the pre-briefing one.
Pre-briefing, we actually have the chair and some of the subcommittee people here in the
well,
audience
let's
with
get them
us
on
today.
up. Come on up.
Yeah, come on, Donna, Jocelyn. Yeah, woo!
So thanks, guys. I know we're going to have to expand the camera
Yes,
shot here
please
just a little bit
expand.
to bring Donna
There you
in.
go.
So they can maybe scoot and share a chair. But yeah,
and
tell us a little bit about the pre-briefing one, because this is so important for the success of a simulation experience. And folks, just so in case you're unaware, this is where we take a moment before the simulation experience, not only to orient the learners to the moment of what we're going to be working on here today, but also all the participants that are involved, right? Getting them all in alignment and making sure that they're aware of what's about to take place. So it's kind of like you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell them, and then you tell them what you told them, right? You told them what you tell. It's that getting the information in their heads early so that they can be better prepared to take action. But tell us a little bit more about the pre-briefing standard.
So pre-briefing came about in the literature the last probably 5 to 7 years, has really exploded as an area of exploration. We always knew debriefing. There's been a lot of research on debriefing, but
Right.
people are like,
Tons on debriefing.
what about pre-briefing? And
Right.
it kind of emerged, and there was some confusion about terminology. Pre-simulation briefing, pre-briefing, what did we call it? So we really did look through the literature extensively and what people were calling it, and trying to eliminate some of that confusion and standardize it. So it really is emerging as an area of research that people feel that if the pre-briefing is really good and students or learners, whatever level, are oriented and prepared, then they're able to perform better in the simulation,
Right.
and be more reflective in debriefing rather than, oh, I did all of this wrong. It's more like, these are what I did well, and be more reflective because they felt prepared for the simulation.
And safe to begin with, right?
Yes.
And so setting up that kind of knowledge and understanding for the learners, no matter if they're students or clinical professionals, that they're going into the space knowing that this is not something to be a gotcha, right? But instead to be a learning opportunity that's less about me telling you what you did wrong and more about us watching a video recording of what we all did and talking about it and learning from there. Did you
Right.
want to share some thoughts about pre-briefing?
So she can share about ambush simulation, which you were talking about.
We have the same brain.
Yes.
Because that was exactly what I was going to mention. We talk about this a lot. Many of us that started, we just sort of said, here's your report, here's your room, there's a mannequin, go for it. And as Donna described earlier, the students would just sort of stand there. And, we finally came up with the term ambush simulation, and it just was so ineffective. You spent more time trying to coach them through the scenario than giving them a chance to learn and reflect. And so pre-briefing really emphasizes there's very few times when that's even in high stakes simulation evaluations. It's not necessary just to throw them in there. It's appropriate to give them the tools so they can be successful and they can either demonstrate what you're looking for or they can learn from the experience.
Right. And so it's about creating an entire program, right? Again, again, stepping back and thinking about things from the programmatic level so that it's not just about like, oh, we're doing sim, we did this, we did that. No, you've got to step back and prepare the learner in a way that they're going to be able to achieve outcomes. And that means orienting them into the space, into the time and the place that they're at so that they can be successful. Quick example, when I went through Fire Academy, we had different city instructors come to teach us, us boots as volunteers. And we really appreciated that. But sometimes that meant the instructors came and they didn't really have that educational background, and they did just throw stuff at us, and it felt like that. It felt chaotic. It felt like we didn't know what they wanted us to do, and the learning suffered from it. I mean, 100%. And I definitely got yelled at a bunch of times that I feel like was not my fault. I'll just say that. But I think this is what pre-briefing represents to me in professional development. Why we're doing these standards and why we're creating them, right? So that we can be successful with these simulation activities, because they are complex, they are challenging, and we really need to let administrators know that if they're going to start going down the road of investing into simulation, we want them to be successful in their role and their responsibilities, which is that they're going to be able to demonstrate ROI. Right? At the end of the day, someone is going to come asking for that. And so to do it properly, we need to think through these things at every level of the process so that we can be effective over time. So I really appreciate you all coming together here to share with us a little bit more about the standards and how they can be available to people. Now, can we get a sneak peek? Is there another standard on the way that maybe we can
that's
get
very interesting
little
that you
insight
asked.
Maybe about what's coming next?
We don't tell secrets at all. No, actually, there will be another, the standards committee is sort of moving on. I think Donna's been on there quite a while. So we're in the transition period of, getting new membership and so forth. And people can volunteer by going on the website. And then there'll be a process to select people to be on this. It's pretty rigorous and so forth. But we really have to do that review of the literature and really look at what's out there before we say there's going to be, a lot of people tell us what they think ought to be a standard, but until we dig in and really find out what's out there, then that will be something that you will know probably in about 3 or 4 years.
Okay, so we have to wait, unfortunately.
Sorry, a couple of years.
Well, I'd like to stick my nose in. I would like to suggest something about program marketing, right? And faculty buy-in, which is probably somewhere in here, but I think we need to talk about how each of us does to the horn of the simulation program and does recruit people and does, if you build it, they will come. Well, we're the build it, right? And so we're the ones that are helping to get the word out there. And so we might need something about, to be successful. We also need to find ways to bring more people into this space. So
we need some literature on that.
Sounds like that needs to be a subcommittee that usually.
Did I just volunteer? I hope
perhaps
not.
Lori, you hear this?
Take notes. Take notes.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us
Thanks.
last minute here, and for all of you for watching at home. Cheers.
Thank you.